What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another FPL video on the channel. And in today's one, we are going to be looking at an FPL Game Week 1 Bench Boost draft. Now, I know a lot of you guys that are watching this video probably do just hate the Bench Boost chip and are just looking to get rid of it straight away and use it in Game Week 1. So that's why I've built this team. I'm personally not going to be playing my Bench Boost in Game Week 1 myself, but of course, the team that you're going to see is what I would do if I was going to use the Bench Boost chip in Game Week 1. Now, with that being said, make sure you smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But yeah, enough of the waffling, let's get straight into it. Alright guys, so first things first, we'll start off with looking at the defense. In goal, we do have Sells, and on the bench we do have Areola, and then for the back three we do have De Kuyper, Levi Colwill, Destiny Udogie, and on the bench we do have Wan-Bissaka and Ezri Konsa. So that is how the defense is looking. Very strong in its depth, and for a Game Week 1 bench boost, I do think it's really good. I like it a lot. You know, you've got double West Ham defense against newly promoted Sunderland away from home. You've also got, you know, Udogie playing against newly promoted Burnley at home. You've got Konsa against Newcastle, Colwill against Palace at home, De Kuyper against Fulham at home, and Sells against Brentford at home. I do think, you know, Konsa playing against Newcastle at home probably isn't ideal, but, you know, I'm also thinking long term with this draft. I don't want to just pick players just for Game Week 1. I want to think ahead, because I think a lot of people have associated a bench boost, you know, a Game Week 1 bench boost strategy with wildcarding early. But with this team, I think there's so many players that have good long-term fixtures that you don't necessarily need to wildcard out of this team early on. You can actually use this team for like 6, 7, or even 8 game weeks. That is my personal opinion. And of course, we'll look, once I've shown you guys the whole team, we will look at how this team does shape up in Game Weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, and onwards. Now, as you guys can probably tell, I've actually not invested too much money into my defense. I've decided to invest the majority of funds for my midfielders and my forwards, and that's because when I look at the cheaper options in midfield, when I look at the cheaper options for the forwards, they don't really excite me much. So I wanted to go for a cheaper defense and invest more money into the attack. Now, even though I've gone for a slightly cheaper defense, I still think it works. I still think you can survive with this defense for the long term, right? You still got quality defenders in there, in my opinion, like Sells in goal, for example, like Colwill. You know, Sells playing for Nottingham Forest, who showed they were one of the best defensive teams in the league last season. Colwill playing the Chelsea team that showed how good they were defensively last season. I think it does work. We've also got rotations going on there. You know, Wan-Bissaka can come into the team when needed. Konsa can come into the team when needed. And I think, you know, Aston Villa also do have really good long-term fixtures. I will say though, right, De Kuyper, he's in the team mainly for his attacking threat. Brighton don't have the best of fixtures, but look, let me just show you guys the fixtures first for Brighton, because you're probably wondering why on earth have I got De Kuyper in the team. However, right, even though his fixtures necessarily aren't the best, so he's got Fulham at home in Game Week 1, Everton away in Game Week 2, which is not too bad. City at home in 3, that's not really ideal for a defender. Bournemouth away in Game Week 4, Spurs at home in Game Week 5, Chelsea away in Game Week 6, and then Wolves, and then Newcastle. Like, you guys can see, it's not really the best of fixtures, right? Brighton, yeah, kind of stinks, to be honest with you, right? However, two things that I like is, number one, De Kuyper's got the attacking threat, and number two, because we've got such a strong team in depth, right? Because we've got that strength in depth in defense, he can just simply get benched when he's got the difficult fixtures, and then he can easily slot into the team when he's got good fixtures. So that's why I've got him in the team. So overall, I do think this defense is pretty solid. You've got the likes of Udogie in there as well, who's got fantastic long-term fixtures. Another reason why I really do like Destiny Udogie. Of course, last season, right, Spurs were absolutely shocking. They stunk up the place week in, week out under Ange Postecoglou, and they were one of the worst defensive teams in the league. However, with Thomas Frank now, I do expect there to be an improvement, especially if their backline can stay fit. And when you look at these fixtures, man, I just feel like a Tottenham defender is needed, man. It really is, especially if you're looking to bench boost in Game Week 1. It's perfect because, you know, he's playing against Burnley at home in Game Week 1. Of course, in Game Week 2, it's a tough fixture against City, but after that, it's Bournemouth at home, West Ham away, Brighton away, Wolves at home, Leeds away. You guys can see here the long-term fixtures are really good. And it really is just the same for Levi Colwill as well, and even Sells. So I think a lot of the defenders in this team have really good long-term fixtures, and that's sort of what I wanted to achieve, because because I don't necessarily want to build this team with the intention to wildcard out of it very, very early. So yeah, I think this defense can definitely work, man. Of course, Areola's in there as well. He can even come in at certain points for sells, you know, when he has a tougher game. And then of course, Wan-Bissaka and Kon's on the bench. I just quite like this defense. I think it does work well. But with that being said, guys, let's move on into the midfield. And in midfield, we do have the FPL GOAT, Mohamed Salah. We also do have Cole Palmer, Dwight McNeil, Morgan Rogers, and Anderson on the bench. Now, we definitely speak on Anderson in a second, but as you guys can see, we've got Mohamed Salah in there. That, of course, does mean there is no Erling Haaland in this team. Look, I do think Erling Haaland, in terms of his first set of 3 games, in terms of the first 3 game weeks, I do actually think he's got the better fixtures when you compare it to Mohamed Salah. I mean, look, Mohamed Salah's opening 3 games as a whole isn't necessarily ideal. You know, Bournemouth at home is good, but then after that, it's Newcastle away and Arsenal at home. So that's not really ideal, especially when you do compare it to, you know, Erling Haaland, who's got Wolves away in game week 1, Spurs at home in game week 2, and Brighton away in game week 3. It is a little bit better when you compare it to Mohamed Salah, but after game week 3, Salah does have much better fixtures, which is why I have decided to go for Salah over Haaland in this specific draft. I think, yeah, it just works well, especially with the 3 forwards I've got as well. Like, I think the 3 forwards in this team are really, really good. So yeah, it just makes sense. So yeah, we got Salah in this team, and of course, look, Salah is Salah at the end of the day. He is the FPL GOAT. He is the FPL king for a reason, right? He can return, he can score goals, he can assist in any given game. That's why he does have that tag. That's why he does have that label of being the FPL GOAT. So yeah, look, Salah is in the team. We also do have Cole Palmer. Now, I know Cole Palmer absolutely stunk up the place last season. Trust me, I for one know that. There were so many games last season where I captained him against the likes of, you know, Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich, and what did he do? He flopped, he failed, he blanked, right? And he caused me nothing but pain and suffering last season. But I do believe still Cole Palmer is a quality player, and every season is different, right? And I think Cole Palmer this season, especially if he does mainly play off the right, I'm hoping Enzo Maresca does decide to play Palmer off the right, because I think if he does play off the right, he'll be even better. Because I think so far, from what we've seen of Cole Palmer, when he plays off the right hand side, he is a much better player for FPL and just for overall football, for Chelsea as well, what he can provide to the team, right? Off the right, he is a lot better. So I am hoping Cole Palmer can play off the right for the majority of this season. But also, look, the fixtures that Chelsea have are really, really good as well, and that's why I have decided to go for Cole Palmer, because the long-term fixtures are really, really good. One thing I will say about this midfield is that there is no Bukayo Saka, and that did kind of hurt me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, because I really do like Bukayo Saka as an FPL option. I really, really do, and especially because of game week 2, man. Game week 2, it's a bit of a crazy one in terms of captaincy. I mean, look, Saka is definitely the standout captain option in game week 2, guys, right? Arsenal are playing against Leeds at home, right? Whilst Liverpool play against Newcastle away, Man City play against Spurs, and Chelsea play away to West Ham. So, look, you could technically captain Cole Palmer here, but because it's the first game, I personally wouldn't feel too comfortable captaining Cole Palmer in the early kickoff, if I'm being totally honest with you. So, yeah, look, captaincy, I wouldn't say it's that big of an issue in game week 2, because we do have a forward option that you could captain, but I would just say it's definitely not as good as Saka, and that's what does hurt me about this team, is that there is no Saka. But look, you can't have the perfect team every week, guys. It's simple as that. So yeah, it is what it is. It's unfortunate, but I still think overall the midfield is good. But I have decided to go for Palmer over Saka, and that's because I just prefer the long-term set of fixtures. You could go for Saka instead of Palmer because of that, specifically because of that game week 2 captaincy against Leeds at home. You can make that choice if you want. You don't have to follow me. But as I said, if I was building sort of this game week 1 team, I think I would go for Palmer. Yeah, I think I would. But look, I do think Cole Palmer will be a good FPL asset nonetheless. The fixtures are great. He's a 90-minute man. He's on penalties. And I think, you know, there is a good chance he can play off the right. And if he does, it will make him even better, in my opinion. Now, I've gone for Morgan Rogers, because Morgan Rogers, I love Morgan Rogers, right? And I'll tell you why I really like Morgan Rogers. Because, as I mentioned earlier on in this video, guys, looking at the cheaper options, looking at midfielders that cost 6.5 million and below, it just stinks, bruv. It just stinks. There's no one that really excites me at that price point, looking at midfielders and looking at forwards at that price point, right? So for me, Morgan Rogers at 7 million, I like a lot, right? I like a lot. And I just think, look, Morgan Rogers last season, he just played week in, week out. He was the 90-minute man. So for me, when I think about all those factors, the fact that I know he'll start week in, week out, the fact that I know he'll play every game, the fact that the fixtures for Aston Villa are really, really good, I just like him as an option. A long-term set and forget option. That's what Morgan Rogers is. He's very, very reliable. Newcastle at home in Game Week 1. Brentford away in Game Week 2. Palace at home in Game Week 3. Everton away in Game Week 4. Sunderland away in Game Week 5. Fulham and Burnley in Game Week 6 and 7. The long-term fixtures are very, very good. And that's why I'm going to go for Morgan Rogers in this draft, man. Because I think, yeah, you just don't have to worry about him. So, yeah, I like him a lot, man. And that's another point I was making, right? I wanted to build a team that didn't force you into an early wildcard. And I think this team is exactly that. It doesn't force you into an early wildcard because so many players have good long-term fixtures. So, yeah, Rogers in the team. And I think, look, Rogers as a player, right? Absolutely quality. Last season, he did well. I think he could have done better in terms of just, off a goals and assist basis. He could have done better. But I think as he matures as a player, as he grows and gets better as a footballer, he will get more goals and assists. And I really do believe that. So, yeah, for me, Morgan Rogers will be in the team. And I definitely would expect him to get more goals and assists than he did last season. So, yeah, I like him as a pick, man. And at his price point, I just think it's perfect. I really, really do. Now, we also do have Dwight McNeil coming in at a price of 6 million. Everton do have very, very nice fixtures, right? And that's the main reason why I've decided to go for Dwight McNeil at the price of 6 million. I think the long-term fixtures for Everton are really, really good. They got Leeds away in Game Week 1, Brighton at home in Game Week 2, Wolves away in Game Week 3, the Villa at home in Game Week 4. Liverpool is tough in 5, but then after that, you got West Ham and Palace at home. So some really, really good fixtures there for Everton, which is why I've decided to go for Dwight McNeil. Now, a lot of people, I've seen a lot of drafts, right, go for Iliman and Dye ahead of Dwight McNeil. Now, Iliman and Dye, number one, he's more expensive than Dwight McNeil, right? Dwight McNeil only costs 6 million, whereas Ndiaye costs 6.5 million. And for me, I just feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like Ndiaye's getting a bit overhyped. I know he's got the penalties, guys. I do know he's got the penalties, and he'll probably play like 80 plus minutes in most games, but his open play goal threat, it just stinks, man. I'm not going to lie. His open play goal threat, but also just assist threat, it's just not that great. It's not that great. And look, as much as, Ndiaye does take penalties, Dwight McNeil does actually, take set pieces like corners and long free kicks. And I feel like Everton are very, very strong from corners and those long free kicks. They got big centre-backs like Tarkowski and Brantford who can score goals. And we've seen countless times Dwight McNeil provide attacking returns from those set pieces. So, yes, Iliman Ndiaye does have the penalties over McNeil, but McNeil does have the other set pieces. And I just feel like overall an open play as well, Dwight McNeil is a little bit of a better FPL asset. Look, I do rate Iliman Ndiaye as a pure footballer. I think he's a really, really good footballer. But for FPL, as an FPL asset, I think I slightly prefer McNeil over Ndiaye. I really, really do. And when you look at their returns, right, from last season, in terms of just goals and assists, right, Dwight McNeil last season got 8 assists and 4 goals, guys. 8 assists and 4 goals, as you guys can see here, in just 15 Premier League starts. So that's 12 goal contributions in just 15 starts. And I think, look, when you do compare that to Iliman Ndiaye, he just blows him out the water, in my opinion. I mean, look, Iliman Ndiaye last season had 29 starts and only got 9 goals, no assists. So in half the starts, right, Dwight McNeil got more goal contributions than Iliman Ndiaye, who also took penalties and also scored a few penalties as well. So yeah, for me, I prefer Dwight McNeil. I really do think I prefer Dwight McNeil as an FPL asset, and that's why I've decided to go for Dwight McNeil over Iliman Ndiaye. You guys might disagree, but that's just my personal opinion. Now, look, on the bench, right, to finish up talking about the midfield, we do have Anderson. Now, Anderson is coming in at a price of 5.5, and the reason why I have decided to go for Anderson, right, first things first, I want to start off by saying the cheap options, I mean, I've already said it, but I'll say it again. The first time was so nice, I had to say it twice. The cheap options in midfield and attack right now absolutely stink, bruv. I'm not going to lie, I don't really like them a lot, but I have decided to go for Anderson at the price of 5.5 million. Number one, Nottingham Forest, really, really good fixtures. But number two, there is maybe a chance, if Morgan Gibbs-White does complete his move to Spurs, there is a chance that Elliot Anderson could maybe play a more advanced role in this Nottingham Forest team. But even if he doesn't play a more advanced role, the reason why I do like Anderson as an option is for the defensive contributions. As you guys know, midfielders and defenders now get extra points for making defensive contributions in a game. And I actually checked, right, what midfielders have the most defensive contributions in the game. And guess what? Anderson was up there, right? He's part of the top 3 midfielders that had the most defensive contributions. As you guys can see, Caicedo is their top with 455 defensive contributions last season in total. Then it's Gay with 418 defensive contributions in total. And then it's Anderson with 407 defensive contributions in total last season. So I look at that and I do think, okay, Nottingham Forest have decent fixtures, decent clean sheet potential as well, because that gives midfielders an extra point. But also Anderson is up there for defensive contributions. So when I look at that, I do think, Anderson, it does make the bench boost work. I think number one, it makes the bench boost work, but also he can always fill in. He can always come in and fill in when needed. So I do think at 5.5, he could be one of the best options right now from what we know. I do feel like he could be one of the best options, especially obviously with the addition of the defensive contribution. So that's why I've gone for Anderson. But anyway, look, enough of that waffle. I feel like I am rambling a little bit. So yeah, let's move on into the forward options. And for the forward options, guys, to complete the team, we do have Chris Wood, Dominic Solanke, and Ollie Watkins. So that is the front 3 I've gone for. I like this front 3 a lot, to be honest with you guys. And as I said, that's part of the reason why I didn't go for Erling Haaland, because I didn't want to take out any of these players. I think all players here are really, really good. As I've shown you guys, Villa have good long-term fixtures, so I like Ollie Watkins if he does stay there. Tottenham have really, really good long-term fixtures, so I like Solanke. And also, another reason why I'm a big fan of Dominic Solanke to start the season. Number one, of course, the fixtures are good, but for me, because now Thomas Frank is managing Spurs, and what I've seen in previous seasons with Brentford number 9s playing under Thomas Frank's system, and seen how well they've performed, like the likes of, Yohan Wissa, Ivan Toney, even Brian Obama when they played a 3-5-2 at times. All of them have just absolutely banged in the Premier League. Last season, Wissa was able to get 19 goals. A couple seasons ago, before Ivan Toney got suspended, was absolutely cooking, scoring goals week in, week out for Brentford. And yeah, I just think Thomas Frank has the ability to get the best out of number 9s in his system, and that's why I do have a lot of hope and a lot of faith in Dominic Solanke being a very, very good FPL asset. So yeah, man, I'm a big fan of Dominic Solanke. I really, really am. He will certainly be in my Game Week 1 squad as long as he can stay fit in pre-season. I guess the slight concern with Solanke is, some people might say he's injury prone, which is fair enough, but look, if he's fit going into Game Week 1, he's in my team. Simple as that. And I think you guys should pick him too, man. I think there is definitely some, high potential there with Dominic Solanke. So, yeah, man, I'm a big fan of him. I even think, I keep saying it, but when you look at, Yohan Wissa being able to score 19 goals last season for Brentford, right? And he's not a clinical finisher, right? I don't look at Yohan Wissa as someone, that guarantees you goals. He's an elite finisher. No, I don't really think he is. I think, yes, he's got good movement, right? He puts himself in very, very good positions to score goals, but he's not necessarily an elite finisher. Now, neither is Solanke. He's not an elite finisher, but still, it just shows you, right? If Wissa can do it, why can't Solanke? And we've also seen Solanke for Bournemouth score, I think, 19 or 20 Premier League goals. So I think he can do it again under Thomas Frank at Spurs. So yeah, man, let's just see what happens there. But I really am a big fan of Dominic Solanke. And of course, we've got Chris Wood. Now, I'm a bit doubtful on Chris Wood. I think he's a good pick because the fixtures for Nottingham Forest are really, really good, right? They've got such good fixtures. I'll go over it again, right? Brentford at home in Game Week 1, Palace away in Game Week 2, West Ham at home in Game Week 3. Arsenal is tough in Game Week 4, but then it's Burnley and Sunderland in Game Week 5 and 6. So the opening 6 games are really good for Forest. That's why I do like Chris Wood. Now, my only concern with Chris Wood is, number one, they've signed a new number 9, Igor Jesus. So will that affect the amount of starts Chris Wood gets? Will that affect the amount of minutes Chris Wood gets? Because remember, Nottingham Forest are also playing European football. So I'm a bit concerned about Chris Wood and how reliable he's going to be. But another thing is the fact that Nottingham Forest have sold, 2 key players. Well, look, they sold Elanga to Newcastle, a very, very key player to their team. And Gibbs White hasn't officially been sold yet, but it does look like he'll be going to Spurs. So they're losing 2 key players. And of course, they've got the money to go and buy and replace them. But we don't know who they're going to bring in yet. So as it stands right now, I just feel like, you know, there could possibly be a drop-off in quality for Nottingham Forest, and you know, how are they going to sort of cope with playing European football as well? That's the sort of concern I do have with Chris Wood. But ultimately, because the fixtures are so good, that's why I've decided to include him in this bench boost team. And of course, in game week 1, you know, I do expect him to start, and he just fits the game week 1 bench boost as well. But yeah, that is how the team is looking, guys. Let me know what you do think of this team. We're not done here yet, because as I said, I do want to show you guys how this team will shape up in future game weeks. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on this team. Do you think it's a good game week 1 bench boost team? And do you think it's a good squad for the long term? Now, yeah, comment down below what you guys think of that. But with that being said, let's waste no more time and let's get straight over to looking at how this team will shape up for future game weeks. So guys, as you can see, we are on planfpl.com, and as I said, we're just going to have a look at how this team will shape up in future game weeks. Now, as you guys can see, this is the game week 1 team, and of course the bench boost would be active with this setup, and I think it does look pretty decent in my personal opinion. Now, moving on to game week 2, what would we do with this team? So first things first, you notice Wan-Bissaka's playing against Chelsea, Udogie's playing against Man City. You'd simply just bring in Ezri Konsa playing against Brentford away from home, bring in De Kuyper playing against Everton away from home. Of course, we do have a bit of conflict there. You know, Dwight McNeil playing against De Kuyper, it's not really ideal, but De Kuyper is an attacking fullback, so hopefully you could get some attacking returns. Or you could even start Anderson away at Crystal Palace and bench McNeil for this game if you didn't want your midfielder playing against your defender. That is an option. But yeah, for game week 2, that's how the team would look. In terms of captaincy, right, for game week 2, I personally would go for Ollie Watkins. If he still is at Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins against Brentford away, I personally would go for that, because I think Brentford will be a very, very poor team this season. They've lost their manager. They've lost so many key players. They might even, you know, they've lost Brian Mbeumo, Christian Norgard. They've lost their keeper, as I said, their manager, and they could even lose Johan Wissa as well. So I think Brentford will see a massive, massive drop-off. Potentially, they could even be fighting for relegation. That's my honest prediction. So that's why I think Ollie Watkins isn't a bad captaincy option for game week 2. But that's how the team would look for game week 2. I don't think it's too bad, in my personal opinion. Now, moving on to game week 3. Right, we would have Destiny Udogie come into the side playing against Bournemouth at home. De Kuyper will go to the bench. You've got Sells against West Ham at home. The defense looks very, very nice actually in game week 2. All have home fixtures. The midfield looks good as well. In terms of captaincy this week, I would probably go for maybe someone like Cole Palmer. But as you guys can see, the starting 11 does look pretty good as well. You've got Anderson on the bench who could come in for Dwight McNeil again if you would like. But yeah, overall, I'd say the team looks pretty good. And this is without transfers, by the way. Right now, what you're seeing is a team that doesn't necessarily need to make any early transfers. So we can roll again. We move into game week 4. You definitely captain Salah against Burnley. I think the defense would probably stay the same. You could start Areola ahead of Sells, but I think I would just stick with Sells to be fair. But yeah, the defense looks pretty good. You've got De Kuyper on the bench and Wan-Bissaka on the bench there. The midfield 4, I don't mind it too much. I think, look, Chris Wood playing against Arsenal away, Anderson playing against Arsenal away isn't ideal. Now, I would say here you've probably got a decision to make, because you could take out Chris Wood for someone like big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta, who has Sunderland at home. However, Chris Wood does have, as I said, he's got Burnley at home in game week 5 and Sunderland at home in game week 6. So you probably wouldn't want to take out Chris Wood. Look, there is an argument to be made here. You know, playing Wood and Sells probably isn't ideal, but I think still rolling the transfer is probably the best play in this scenario. I mean, you could actually maybe at this point you might want to wildcard if you wanted to, but I don't think this team needs a wildcard. I think there's still the rest of the team does have good fixtures in game week 4 and good fixtures in upcoming game weeks. So look, I think, yes, it's not ideal playing Wood against Arsenal, but after that, his fixtures are so good. I think it is what it is, man. You just got to roll and take the punches in game week 4. But look, moving on into game week 5, again, we've managed to accumulate quite a few transfers here. I think we'd go for Anderson instead of McNeil in midfield. We could start Wan-Bissaka, maybe ahead of Udogie. He goes away to Brighton. And I think I would just keep Cole in the team playing against Manchester United away. You've got Salah. You've got triple Aston Villa against Sunderland away. triple Forest against Burnley away, which actually isn't too bad. We've got Palmer there against Manchester United. So I think the team in Game Week 5 also does look pretty decent, to be honest with you guys. So yeah, I do think this team is pretty strong, even without using free transfers. But yeah, let me know what you guys do think of this team down below in the comments, right? And will you be using your bench boost in Game Week 1? I'd love to know what your strategy, what your game plan is to start the season. But yeah, I think this draft definitely has some potential. I do quite like it. I think it's really, really well balanced, and as I said, you can accumulate lots of free transfers as well with this team. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Smash a like on the video if you did enjoy. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Turn on post notifications as well so you never miss an upload. But yeah, man, it's been your boy FPL Ryan, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.